It's official, Justin. The Titans just selected Cam Ward, quarterback, University of Miami, with the first overall pick. We are going to break down his strengths, his weaknesses, who he is as a person, how and why the Titans came to the decision to draft him with the first overall pick, and I'm calling it a notebook dump. Everything I have on Cam Ward, we're unloading it here. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone to a super duper awesome, exciting, that was weird, to a super awesome and exciting episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo. If this is your first time tuning into the channel because you're psyched about the Titans drafting Cam Ward, welcome. We appreciate you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop a comment below. Today we're breaking down basically everything we have about Cam Ward. We've talked about him on this show for months and months and months, but there are going to be people tuning into this that haven't seen any of that other coverage. We're not going to go as in-depth. We're going to spend hours on this because honestly, I could talk about Cam Ward for hours. But we are going to go over who he is, what he brings to the Titans, what are the areas of concern that he still needs to work on, and ultimately like what sealed the deal for the Titans to make this selection. And we'll close this thing out with expectations for Cam Ward's rookie season. Justin, I'm just so pumped right now I can hardly talk. I'm throwing it to you. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thankfully the Titans did not surprise us tonight. After months of speculation, weeks, months, whatever you want to call it, speculation, the inevitable became reality as they took Cam Ward here mere moments ago with the number one overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. It's an exciting time. As I said on our last episode, he's the first ever number one overall quarterback in franchise history. That's dating back to 1960, Houston Oilers. So big moment in this franchise history. Hopefully this is what it takes to turn over a new leaf and get the Titans moving back in the right direction.
And if you listen to this podcast a lot, you know that I believe it is what will put this franchise back on the map and sort of turn things around. But of course, you never know. And there are draft busts all the time. Chance Warmack was a sure thing. Remember that? And Josh Allen was a terrible pick when the Bills drafted him. Remember that? Like, we never really know. But we're going to go through why we think this is the right move for the Titans. And we're going to start just by doing some basic on the field only, no character, no personality, none of that. On the field only, strengths and weaknesses of Cam Ward's game and what he brings to the Titans. And we're going to obviously start with the strengths because we are a positive, hope-inspired podcast here. His number one strength to me, Justin, and this is the one that everybody talks about, and it's the thing that separates him and makes him a potentially great quarterback in the league. It's his off-script abilities. And you'll hear some people say, like, you know, you can talk up a player's off-script ability, but if they can't win from within the pocket, then the off-script stuff doesn't matter. We'll get to that in a second, because I think what makes Cam Ward so great is that he can play in and out of the pocket. But really, the creativity out of structure, the ability to run with the intention to throw. So I don't mean run past the line of scrimmage, but run out of the pocket away from pressure, that sixth sense ability to sort of sense where the pressure's coming from, how much time he has in the pocket, and then to get out of those messy situations, keeping his eyes downfield and finding open receivers, sometimes for short gains that lead to first downs, sometimes for huge explosive gains, sometimes all the way to the end zone for awesome touchdowns and highlight reel plays. And I think that that is what ultimately separated him in this quarterback class, is his ability to not just play in structure, but to play out of structure and create explosives in the passing game, which is how you win in the NFL in 2025.
Yeah, it's certainly his most impressive quality, and it's something the Titans hope that he's bringing to Nashville with him. The ability to maneuver the pocket, stay calm under pressure, remain poised, keep his eyes downfield, you know, as he's navigating pressure, moving up in the pocket, side to side, whatever it takes. And he's also very strong, I find, to get out of the grasp of the initial defender. So, and then it's also, when he's creating off script, being able to deliver the football from a variety of arm angles is also something that really struck me on tape. So, yeah, there's no doubt about it. Look, off-script ability is all the rage in today's NFL. It's almost a necessity to be a high-level quarterback, right? Patrick Mahomes has it. Jaden Daniels has it. Jalen Hurts has it. Lamar Jackson has it. Josh Allen obviously has it. Like, all these guys, I would say even Justin Herbert has it. All these guys that are high-level quarterbacks have that ability to create off-script, keep a play alive when it looks dead. That it's certainly his number one selling point as a quarterback.
And it's not his only selling point, though. And that's what I think makes him a more complete prospect than, like a Johnny Manziel or a Zach Wilson, who could make those insane crossbody throws, but didn't know how to function within an offense. And Cam Ward functions really well within an offense at a level that he doesn't get enough credit for because everybody focuses on the off-script stuff. But his ability to hit the back of his drop, the top of his drop, back foot plants, and the ball comes out is as good as you'll see, I think, at the college level. His ability to anticipate throws and diagnose coverages, like he can absolutely win from within the pocket, especially attacking down the seam over the middle of the field where some quarterbacks are scared to throw. He is fearless, and I think that that's one of the things that separates him. But he also has the arm talent and the arm strength. And look, it's not elite arm strength. It's not on that same level as Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, where it's or Justin Herbert, the best cannons in the league. In fact, it's probably not on the same level as Will Levis. But the ability to make a throw from the opposite hash in college, where we know the hash marks are much wider than they are in the NFL, to the sideline on the other side of the field, in rhythm and in stride, are also huge strengths of his game. And I think that ability to actually lead an offense and not just do the stuff outside of structure, coupled with the out of structure stuff, make him such a great prospect. And you see him audibling at the line of scrimmage. You see the awareness on the field, drawing offsides flags or too many men on the field penalties on the defense because he knows when he needs to get the snap off. And there's a really funny play against Cal where he gets a too many men on the field penalty on the defense, and he's pointing at the guy running off the field after he has the ball snapped to him, brings his head back around to the middle of the field and delivers a strike across the middle. And it's that kind of awareness, I think, that really is going to separate him. And one of the reasons I'm so encouraged by this guy as a prospect is he can run an offense. He called plays in the huddle his last year at Miami. He didn't just look at giant signs on the sideline, big pictures that called the plays for the entire offense. Like, he had to spit out lengthy play calls in the huddle, and that's something that'll help him translate faster. And I'm really excited about what he can do, like, as the captain of the system, that he can run the system the way that it needs to be executed in structure and on time.
Yeah, I think it's probably his most underrated trait. We spent a lot of time talking about the off-script ability, understandably so. But I think somewhere in that, the ability to run an offense on time, on schedule, pre- and post-snap recognition gets a little lost in the mix here. And there's a great story out right now. I think it was on MSN.com about Cam Ward being the number 1 overall pick. I believe Adam Kilgore wrote the story, if I'm recalling correctly.
I will be referencing that in a little bit, but continue.
Yeah. One of the parts that kind of, really stuck out to me was, I believe it was the Hurricanes offensive coordinator, a section where he said it was one of his first practices here at Miami. It was a really basic install at that point. We hadn't really installed our complete offense yet. You want to stop me there?
Yeah, because here's the exact quote. At Miami's first spring practice, Dawson called a simple running play. Since Ward had just arrived and the Hurricanes had yet to install an offense beyond their base plays, Dawson assumed Ward was not yet equipped to call an audible. This is Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator. Before the snap, Ward saw a safety cheating over, a sign that the defense was about to run a blitz that Miami calls sonic. Ward changed the play dramatically, 4 vertical routes with 6 blockers to pass protect. He zipped a pass down the seam to the area the safety had vacated for an 80-yard touchdown. Shannon Dawson said, "I was like, all right, this guy sees stuff in the back end in a different way. He is obsessed with the game of football. When he leaves this building, his mind is constantly turning. He doesn't have a lot that keeps him away from the game."
Yeah, that's the quote that I wanted to reference. I know you have not shocked you had it pulled up ready to go. Although thankfully, it does sound like I remembered it exactly the way that it was written. But that's something that, again, I think is probably his most underrated trait. Again, we talk about the off script, but the ability to recognize something pre-snap. And remember, Brian Callahan did a great interview a couple weeks ago with The Athletic, talking about how they spent a lot of time watching what he did at Miami, essentially saying, we want this to be year 2 almost for him in the Miami offense, looking at what he does well, what he understands at a high level, and making sure that he's comfortable. So certainly he's got the ability to come here and grasp this offense right away and have success in it.
And he's not a perfect prospect. I think those are some of his biggest strengths. Again, on the field, we'll talk about his character in a moment and that side of the evaluation. But on the field, I think those are, like, he can do everything that you need a quarterback to do at a high level, but he does have some areas where he still needs to improve. I would call it a concern, except that I'm not that concerned about them because I think that he's going to work it out. But number one for me is obvious to anyone watching this who's watched any of Cam Ward. It's the turnovers. He does have a propensity because he's so good off script that sometimes he gets a little arrogant with it. Call it arm arrogance. Sometimes he has a little tiny microscopic, and I don't want this comparison to be taken too far, bit of Will Levis in the sense that he will from time to time make a boneheaded turnover. The difference is more often than not, he makes an amazing play where Will Levis just usually only turns it over. But yeah, the crossbody throws out of structure. I watched back his tape and I think there were only 2 of his 7 interceptions last year that came like within the structure of the play. The other 5 interceptions were all him trying to make something happen and throwing it across the field into coverage and not recognizing that his guy wasn't open or he couldn't get the ball there from where he was on the field. He's got to cut that out. But you don't want to cut it out so much that you take away the big plays as well. So more having him pick his spots in those moments, take the check down when it's there. At the same time, Josh Allen, I think you said this on a podcast a couple weeks ago here. Josh Allen led the league in interceptions a couple years ago. But that didn't stop him from leading a really good offense as well. And that's one thing that I think sometimes...
30 points per game, go to the playoffs every year.
Exactly. Sometimes you have to accept that there will be a few turnovers if you're going to get those awesome big plays out of it as well. So yeah, you want to mitigate that as much as possible, but also you kind of just accept that like, look, Patrick Mahomes made a play like this in the Super Bowl, okay? He threw a crossbody out of structure throw that got picked off and returned for a touchdown by Cooper DeJean. It happens to the best quarterbacks in the league. You just don't want it to happen as often. So the turnovers, and it's not just the crossbody. He also has had a fumbling issue, but I think that one to me is a very low concern because it seemed like he figured that one out last year at Miami.
Yeah, a lot more fumbles early on in his career at Incarnate Word and Washington State than it was at Miami. I don't have a lot to add to this. I think it's been well documented. What I will say is to build on the point you made. The good has to outweigh the bad, right? Like as long as you're making explosive plays and you're overseeing an effective, high impactful offense. Then you live with how many turnovers it is. If it's not enough, it's not so many where, oh my God, we're scoring 14 points a game and we're turning it over twice, right? That's when you can't live with it and have to cut it out. But as long as he's making big plays more often than not, running an explosive offense, then it's something you're not worried about. I'm going to flip the script here. I'm going to give you something that's more concerning to me than that. For me, and by the way, you talked about the turn. I do want to add, if you look at Pro Football Focus, you put any stock in that, the turnover-worthy play rate's always been high throughout his career, and it still was high at Miami this past year, not just at the other spots. But the thing that's more concerning to me is the lack of consistent accuracy and completions outside the numbers. I found he had a lot of success targeting the middle of the field, not nearly as much success targeting outside the numbers. Now, it could just be a weakness of his. I think I think he's a lot less accurate, at least on tape, when it comes to those outside the number throws. It could be a variety of things. Maybe he's never going to figure that out and be great at it. I don't know. If you want to play devil's advocate and kind of deliver something that works in his favor here, has never really had a ton of talent on the outside throughout his career. Like the 2 best receivers at Miami this year, undeniably, was a tight end who traditionally is always going to be better, targeting the middle of the field, and the slot receiver in Xavier Restrepo, who again is sort of your traditional slot wideout. That's always going to do more damage sort of on those, slants and anything to the middle as opposed to being your traditional big-bodied guy on the outside. The guys that played outside for him this year, Jacoby George, Samuel Brown Jr., are, in truth, they're barely draftable, in my opinion, and they don't have great size. They're all, if I'm recalling correctly now, I hope I am, but all in that, 5'10", 5'11", 180, 190 range. You don't have like a 6'2", 210-pound guy outside this year. And the best ex-receiver he ever had was Kyle Williams at Washington State in 2023, who again is undersized, but we believe can play X due to his release package. But still, you're not targeting T. Higgins on the outside there, right? A go up and get it, true type of talent. Hopefully the Titans give him something like that. They don't have that on the roster per se. Hopefully they give him that on Friday or Saturday. We'll see. But certainly it's a bit of a concern for me.
Yeah, I think that that's a fair concern. I think, another one I was going to bring up is very much tied to that, and that's his inconsistent footwork and accuracy in general. Like, he will get sloppy with his feet at times because he has such a talented arm and ability to throw the ball basically wherever he wants it, that sometimes he forgets that his feet need to be in sync. Now, they don't always need to be in sync. He's great at throwing on the run. He's great at throwing off platform from crazy angles, but it's not a 100% hit rate there, right? So there are times where his feet stay on the first progression and his arm has already moved to the second, and he doesn't bring his feet with him, and he overshoots one, like a post route. There's some on tape that he overshoots. The same thing happens on some of those deeper sideline throws. The biggest one for me is the deep balls outside the numbers. I think he throws a beautiful seam ball. He can throw it deep in the middle of the field. There's plenty of those types of plays on his tape, whether they're caught or not. Perfect throws deep down the middle, like go balls down the middle, which is not really a go. That's more of a seam, right? But the go balls on the outside, he tends to overshoot those more often than not. And some of that is just not putting enough air under the football, which again is something that you can learn and work on. He also, he only played with his Miami receivers, which is the tape that we're mostly referring to, because he's made such strides as a player every year that last year's tape holds by far the most weight in my eyes. I've only watched, I think I watched 5 Washington State games. I watched every Miami game. So to me, like, having that chemistry, he was only there for 1 year. Having that chemistry with his receivers on where to put the ball can help improve that, but also just a general like ability to get more lofty throws down the field so his receivers can run under them. I will say the good thing about it is it's almost always an overthrow. It's a very rarely an underthrow. Overthrows, incomplete. Underthrows, interceptions. So that's a huge positive in the sense if you're going to miss those deep go balls on the outside, at least overthrow them. But it's definitely an area where that's not his best strength, is throwing the deep down the field outside the numbers passes.
Yeah, certainly. It's one of those things he's going to have to improve at the next level. And, again, you hope with a QB-friendly head coach in Brian Callahan, hopefully they add some weapons here. But, having a two-headed monster in the backfield, a Calvin Ridley at receiver, Chig at tight end, and hopefully there's enough there that he's going to be able to work that out and be comfortable with his cast of weapons and get on the same page with them.
Okay, so that is the basic strengths and weaknesses of the Titans' first overall draft pick. Now I want to get more into the character, and this is where I'm calling it the notebook dump, Justin. So I have a lot here. Stop me if I'm rambling too much and you want to interject. I will do my best to throw it back to you as often as it feels right, but I do have a lot to get through here. So I'm going to start with, who is this guy? Who is Cam Ward? And this is the part where, the obligatory mention that he started as a 0-star recruit out of West Columbia High School in Texas, spent 2 years, including a COVID-shortened season in 2020 at Incarnate Word. Then he transferred to Washington State. He entered his name into the transfer portal after 2 years at Washington State, and then decided to declare for the NFL draft. He got some feedback that he was going to be a day 3 pick, maybe day 2 if a team fell in love with him. So he decided to go back into the transfer portal, wound up at Miami, where he led the nation's top scoring offense, 43.9 points per game. He led the NCAA in touchdown passes with 39 last season. He broke the NCAA Division I career passing touchdowns record with 158 total career passing touchdowns, and set himself up to be the number 1 overall pick, which he just was. So that, I think everyone probably already knows, but I feel like we can't do a complete Cam Ward discussion without at least mentioning the 0-star recruit thing.
Yeah, I sent that story, a really good story written recently. I think it was local to a Texas story about the whole background, how it came about. Really terrific stuff there. I sent it to a friend, more of a casual football fan, and he was a bit of a casual Titans fan. And he read it, and he was just blown away by it. And even me, like if you guys are first-time watchers of this, I work for the Draft Network. The NFL Draft is my bread and butter. Like, I still have had a hard time wrapping my head around this story. Like, the amount of money that goes into recruiting in the United States of America, it's just one of those things that does not happen, right? Like, it is not supposed to happen. He's in the state of Texas. Like, this should not happen in Texas, the best recruiting state in the nation. Let's call it what it is. Like, this should not happen. And somehow it did, and it just makes his story so unique. So we know why. If you don't know, the high school program he was in, they threw the ball like 8 or 9 times per game. It was it like a wing tee? It was like a ridiculous gimmicky offense. no one got to see him throw the ball. Who was that high school coach, by the way? Like, how do you not have this guy throw the football? But, anyway, it just doesn't happen. But it did happen, right? It did happen. And it's an unbelievable story. And really, it's part of the reason why the Titans fell in love with him. The work ethic, the never say die sort of attitude, comes from a terrific family who invested a lot into trying to make his dream come true. When, in all honesty, at times it looked impossible that it was going to come true, literally impossible. They continued investing their time, their money, their effort into fighting for this kid's dream to come true. So hats off to his parents. It's a big reason why the Titans fell in love with him. It's the work ethic. It's just, in the story, the ability to overcome adversity and to say, I've got a dream and I'm going to chase it no matter what. It really is astounding.
And his parents go to every game. They've been to every college game that he played, which is amazing.
I mean, they're going to be at every Titans game as well. They're not going to stop now, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and now, at least Cam can help pay. I mean, maybe last year at Miami with the NIL money, he could help pay for those flights too, but now he can really help. A little bit more about him just as a person, as a passer. Last season, he led the nation in QBR. That's quarterback rating, not passer rating, QBR. He led the nation in 300-yard games with 10. He was the best quarterback in the country on third down with a 95 QBR overall on third down, which was first in college football. Averaged 8.51 yards per dropback on third down, also first in college football, and led Miami to the best third down offense in the country with a 55.41% conversion rate. He had the second most passing yards in the nation, trailing only Kyle McCord. I mean, all of the production elements that you're looking for in a prospect, especially one to go number one overall, he blew them all away. I mean, he was the leader in so many statistical categories last season that
Miami's first 10-win season since I think 2017 or 2018. Yeah, first time they've won 10 games in over 5 years. So that was a big deal as well.
All right, next in the notebook dump, Justin, is why him? And I'll tell you why him really quickly after we tell our audience a little bit about Sinkers Beverages. Music City Audible is presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville, serving the community since 1985. Their knowledgeable staff is proud to help you with large parties, themed events, or finding something unique for a special occasion. From birthday parties to milestone celebrations to everyday moments, Sinkers can help with the right drink for every occasion. If you head to the Sinkers Beverages website or check the link in the podcast description, you can join the In Crowd. It's a free-to-join membership that gives you access to allocated wines and spirits, exclusive events, early access to barrel releases, and more. So if you're in the Nashville area and you need some liquor or some beer or some drinks for a party, Sinkers Beverages is the place. All right, Justin.
Get sloppy tonight. Celebrate Cam Ward, number one overall. Get a little sloppy drunk. Make sure you get all the liquor at Sinkers Beverages. Don't drive, but make sure you celebrate the Cam Ward number one pick appropriately.
Get responsibly sloppy drunk. Good call, Justin. All right, why Cam Ward? I think the best way to sum this up, Easton Freeze wrote a great article earlier this week, and in this article, he tried to answer the question, is Cam Ward actually worth the first overall pick, or is he just the best QB in a bad class? So I'm going to reference some stuff from that article in which Easton wrote, they fully believe Cam Ward is the guy. This is not a decision born of desperation. They were sold on Cam Ward, and we're recording this before they do their post-draft pick press conference. We'll probably hear from Brian Callahan, Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi in a second about the process of getting to know Cam Ward and how they became sold on him. But we do have some info here that we don't need to get from them because Easton in this article, he brought up Callahan's quote from a few months ago about the nervous system, about a guy who has that it factor, who doesn't sink in big moments, who rises to the occasion. And I think Cam Ward fits that nervous system thing to a T. You already referenced Adam Kilgore's article in the Washington Post.
I was hoping you were going to do this
earlier this week. I have more quote. I mean, obviously I read a long quote already. I have more quotes I'm going to read from this. This one is about the nervous system thing. Kilgore wrote, at Miami, having watched Ward linger in the pocket as if waiting at a bus stop, Shannon Dawson and an offensive analyst grew curious about whether Ward was really as placid as he appeared. They asked Hurricane sports scientists to review tracking technology that showed players' heart rates. Even during the tensest moments, Ward's pulse stayed level. So this is a huge factor in why the Titans landed on Cam Ward. It's not just because the last guy they had fumbled a lot, not literally fumbled, but fumbled away games in the biggest moments. It's because Callahan was around Joe Burrow, who has this same kind of clutch, nervous system. It's because Borgonzi was around Patrick Mahomes, who, has the best record in the playoffs at leading a come from behind or game winning. Like every time he's had the opportunity when trailing by less than a touchdown or a touchdown to tie or take the lead in the last 5 minutes of a playoff game, Patrick Mahomes has done it every single time. Now he hasn't won every Super Bowl because some of those they were not within a touchdown. But that's the kind of nervous system that the decision makers have been around, that they've seen quarterback play at the highest level, and they knew they had to go find a guy with that nervous system. And I guarantee you, if they had brought Cam Ward in, met him at the combine, brought him in for his 30 visit, talked to his coaches at 3 different schools that he played for, and found out maybe this guy doesn't have the nervous system we're looking for, I guarantee you they would not have taken a quarterback at number 1 in this draft class. But because they happened to find a guy, they happened to be in a year where that guy does exist, they landed on Cam Ward, and that's why him.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And for me, that's one of those traits. And watching Will Levis, 2024, and unfortunate times, haven't had a franchise quarterback in a long time, but watching Will Levis, you have that or you don't, right? I think it's that simple. And you cannot teach yourself to keep a level pulse, a steady heart rate in tense situations. I don't believe that can be taught. I really don't. When you've got a 300-pound lineman barreling down on you and you're trying to sidestep and it's 3rd and 10 and you're moving, yada, yada, you're calm or you're not. And if you're nervous, I don't think you can learn how to be calm in that moment. Like Will Levis said throughout the season that he was trying to work on that. I don't think we ever saw it. I don't think we ever will, in all honesty, right? Like you have that or you don't. I've gotten so used to Titans quarterbacks not having it, because Marcus Mariota didn't have it either, right?
Well, I will say Marcus Mariota had some of it. That Jags game where he stiff-armed the dude to get the first down and put the Titans in the playoffs. The comeback against Kansas City, he had some of it. But
I mean when the pocket's collapsing. I don't just.
Well, that's part of it. But I also think the nervous system thing is about it's the biggest moment of the game. Are you going to sink or swim? And Ryan Tannehill, in the biggest moment of his Titans career, well, there are 2 big moments in his Titans career. Number 1 was the AFC Championship. I mean, look, the Titans got to the AFC Championship on the back of Derrick Henry. Ryan Tannehill did not have to do much. There was not a high-pressure moment for him. In the AFC Championship, the high-pressure moments came when the Chiefs finally took the lead back, and he crumbled. First overall seed in 2021 against the Bengals. Your defense has 9 sacks, and he crumbled in those biggest moments. The potential game-winning drive, 3rd interception, right? And I agree with what you're saying, though. It also has to do with what's happening in the pocket when there's chaos around you. Can you stay centered and calm?
And that's most important to me, is all I was trying to say, because, of course, those tense moments, they sometimes decide division titles, they decide championships, they decide the outcome of games. I get all that, and, of course, that's important. But for me, the chaos in the pocket, because it's something that happens more frequently, right? That's going to happen multiple times a game. To be able to stay calm in those moments, to me, really sticks out, because it's a difference between a bad quarterback and a good one a lot of the time. And sometimes it's a difference between a bad quarterback and a great quarterback, right? If Will Levis had that, he'd probably be a great quarterback because he's got a lot of the other stuff. He's got the arm talent, yada, yada, yada. That ability to stay calm is really what might be my favorite non-physical trait that Cam Ward has.
Yeah, and also, though, just to continue hammering the point I was making, here's some numbers that shed a light on why being clutch and having that kind of nervous system is super important. Last season in the NFL, over 40% of games were decided by 1 score or fewer. When you look at some of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, we'll start with the one right now, Patrick Mahomes. 17% of his wins have come on 4th quarter comebacks. 14% of Brady's career wins came on a 4th quarter comeback. 16% of Peyton Manning's 186 career wins came on 4th quarter comebacks. 15%, which is about the average of those numbers, of 17 games, is almost 3 games a season, 2.5 games a season. I mean, that's the difference between going 10-7 and making the playoffs and 8-9 and missing the playoffs, is those clutch moments. So it is super important, even as much as, you're saying, it decides end of games here and there, but 40% of games last year decided by 1 score. Pretty important.
lot of parity in the NFL, more than people realize. Blowouts are few and far between.
All right, I want to talk about more about why him here, Cam Ward. It's not just the nervous system, the clutch factor, the cool, calm, collected demeanor. It's also something you referenced a little bit ago. I'm going to come back to it. He has a mind for the game. By all accounts, he has a mind for the game. And you gave the one example of at the, I guess I kind of snaked in there and took it from you, but the Miami spring practice. There was another one from the Incarnate Word days. This was also mentioned in that Washington Post article, and it's going to read straight from it. In a playoff game against Stephen F. Austin, Incarnate Word faced 4th and 2 at the SFA 7-yard line in the final minute, needing a touchdown to force overtime. Morris, the head coach, called a pass concept to beat the Lumberjacks' customary man coverage, a fade-out combination with 2 wideouts on the left. At the snap, the defense quickly shifted into a cover 2 zone it had not shown all game. On the sideline, Morris panicked. On the field, Ward processed the switch immediately and layered a touchdown pass into a small sliver of space between the cornerback's head and the end zone sideline. This is part of why they landed on Cam Ward, because it's not just the in structure, it's not just the out of structure, it's also the post-snap recognition, which is usually the number one hardest thing for college quarterbacks to transition to when they get to the next level. Is a lot of times in college, what you see pre-snap is what you get. Now that is changing a little bit, especially last year. There were, there's more and more teams running disguising coverages and stuff like that. But for the most part, when you get to the league, it's almost all disguised coverage. Probably more than 50% of snaps, once the ball's in your hands, the picture changes, as they say, right? And the ability to diagnose that. And I think you saw early in the season at Miami, there were moments when Cam Ward struggled a little bit to process some post-snap coverage changes. But later in the season, as the season went on, he got better and better at it. And the fact that he was doing it at Incarnate Word already, when he came from, like you mentioned, the wing T system that threw the ball 10 times a game at most, a run-heavy offense, switched to the air raid and was able to diagnose coverages like this. It's polar opposite schematic systems here. I think just bodes well for his future. By all accounts, he's a tape junkie, studying film obsessively, and that ability not just to study the film, but to then be able to process it quickly on the field is super important to being a successful quarterback, and that is another reason the Titans landed on Cam Ward.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add to that. So I want to quickly, I think it's on the same topic. I want to talk about how the Titans landed on Cam Ward, what the actual process entailed, right?
Please.
I think it does tie into that a little bit. When the Titans got this number 1 overall pick, they were not thinking Cam Ward initially, right? They were thinking trade down Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Like I would confidently say Cam Ward wasn't even in the top 3. Now they knew they had a long process ahead of them, and obviously no decisions were made. But those were the early 3. They were really intrigued. We got to, maybe trading this pick, and they were intrigued by the quote unquote 2 best players, Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. They first met Ward at the NFL Combine. That was their first face-to-face meeting with him. They had a formal interview at the Combine. If you guys are not aware, there is like an 18, 19-minute time limit on those formal interviews at the Combine. Not that long. With that said, he maximized every minute. He blew them away in that room, really impressed them with some of the stuff you just said, pre, post-snap, football IQ, yada, yada. Where did they go from there? They scheduled his pre-draft visit, which, you were always going to have him in, right, when you got the number 1 pick. But they scheduled it strategically before free agency opened, okay? Well, very strategically. Are we going to be players for Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, whatever? Justin Fields, one of these veteran bridge quarterbacks. We got to know before it opens. So he gets there for his pre-draft visit. Obviously a lot longer than a 20-minute showcase. You're spending the whole day with him. They didn't bring in 6, 7 guys for a top 30 that day, which you sometimes do, right? Sometimes you have these guys in groups. They didn't do that with Cam Ward. All focus on him, of course, with good reason. In my opinion, that is where they shifted to, this is probably what we're going to do at number 1 overall. He blew them out of the water in that visit. It was just an appropriate build on that Combine formal, right? Put him on the whiteboard, really test his football IQ, talk ball with Brian Callahan, an offensive-minded head coach. They left that pre-draft visit saying, wow, this guy really has it. Everything you just said, the pre-snap, the post-snap, the character, the leadership, which I'm sure we'll get into in a second. From there, they go to the pro day. it was what you wanted to see, right? It was a great throwing showcase. They sent the whole nine, they sent the whole organization there, right? Head coach, president of football ops, general manager, assistant GM, whatever title Reggie McKenzie has, Jim Wyatt and the TV crew, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. They were all there, scouts. Blew them away once again, which was, again, the appropriate buildup. They go back to Nashville. I think it was 4 or 5 days later. It was less than a week. They go back to Miami for a private workout. Amy Adams Strunk, team owner, flew the private jet to that work. I mean, at that point, they knew they're taking him at number 1 overall. They didn't need to see anything at the private workout. That's an opportunity for the owner, clearly saying, wow, this is serious. Again, first time we're ever taking a quarterback number 1 overall. Remember, her father owned the organization in the 60s. It had never happened, right? So Amy Adams, this moment was not lost on Amy Adams Strunk. Fly the private jet down there to meet with him. Really just a formality, right? Like, unless he totally screwed that up, they knew they were taking him at number 1 overall. He did not screw it up. That's how this happened. That's how this all played out. That's how they landed on him at number 1 overall. He just blew them away, like he's done at every turn. For in college, yada yada, Incarnate Word, Miami, Washington State. He blew them away at every turn.
Absolutely. And part of what you mentioned there, you said we're probably going to get to it. We are getting to it now, the leadership aspect. By all accounts, any person that you talk to that reports on what people around Cam Ward, his teammates, his coaches, his former coaches have said about him, and especially, the head coach Mario Cristobal down to Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator, down to the receivers at Miami, they say that Ward changed the culture of multiple programs almost immediately upon arriving on campus. At Incarnate Word, as a true freshman, he won the starting quarterback job, despite, as I mentioned before, transitioning from a run-heavy wing T offense to the polar opposite air raid scheme. Everyone that's spoken about him at Miami has said he immediately changed the mentality of the building within a couple days of being there. He organized throwing sessions. This is more from the Washington Post article. He organized throwing sessions with receivers, forcing teammates to run routes with extreme precision and focus. Before long, Shannon Dawson started calling Cam Ward the best receivers coach in the country. Dawson credited Ward for instilling discipline Miami had lacked. And this is part of that leadership. It ties to a story that Michael Irvin told that I posted a video of on Twitter a few weeks ago, how Cam Ward was organizing those throwing sessions with his receivers, and one of his receivers didn't come because he was at a separate throwing session working out with Lamar Jackson. And Cam called him and said, look, you're not going to be catching passes from Lamar Jackson this season. And if you don't get your ass here, you won't be catching passes from me either. More from the Washington Post article. This is a Shannon Dawson quote. He doesn't shy away from hard conversations. To be a true alpha, people throw that term around a lot. You got to be able to take a stand when nobody is standing around you, and he has that ability. He doesn't care about what the majority believes. If he believes it in his heart, he'll stand on an island by himself. You've got to be a lone wolf if you want to be a leader, and he does that. That's what makes him the best leader, and that's what's going to make him go. That's what's going to make him go to wherever he goes early and rally everybody around him. So that leader, the stories about his leadership, I mean, some of it I take with a grain of salt because I feel like you hear this about every player ever that comes out of the draft, especially quarterbacks. But sometimes there's so much overwhelming evidence that you can throw the salt away and say, this is real.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and plug something I've got dropping tomorrow morning. And I'm not just, and you're nodding and smiling, I'm not just taking this opportunity to plug it. I think you know why. Over the last month, it's probably the best article I've written in the last year, at least. I got a chance to speak with Kyle Williams, so his receiver at Washington State. Then I spoke to his 3 best receivers at Miami, Xavier Restrepo, Jacoby George, and Samuel Brown Jr. If you're not familiar, all 4 of those wide receivers are getting drafted this weekend. All of them are going to get drafted on Friday and Saturday. They were so gracious enough to spend time with me and give me exclusive quotes and conversations on Cam Ward, who he is as a person and who he is as a quarterback. And I've spent the last month taking those quotes. This is the kind of guy Cam Ward is. I'm going to give you guys a peek behind the curtain. Most of these quotes that I gathered from these players, I gathered while I was interviewing them. I pulled them aside and, hey, for something separate I'm working on, let's talk about Cam Ward. I decided to write this article a month after I had interviewed Xavier Restrepo. Okay. I thought I might have missed the boat. I don't know. I texted Xavier and I said, hey, I'm working on something about Cam Ward. I know we already spoke. Do you have a couple minutes to give me something about who he is, quarterback leader? He's probably going number one of the Titans. I'm working on this. Xavier responded to me, I'm not shitting you. I should check it in my phone. I think it was 3 minutes later. And he said, I would love to talk about Cam with you. And we got back on the phone a month after we had already done it. And he might have given me the best quotes out of it. I mean, Kyle Williams, the Kyle Williams stuff's really special too. I can't wait for you guys to read the Kyle Williams quotes. But what Xavier, and this is all compiled into one story. It's dropping tomorrow morning, Friday morning, bright and early. I won't give away the headline. I won't give away the title, but you'll know it when you see it. If you follow me on social media, at Twitter, JustinM_NFL. I'm so excited to get this out there. I've been working on it for over a month. It's one of those ones I took my time with, and it's a little unique and exclusive. I don't think there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out where, people got to talk to his 4 favorite receivers in one article. So I can't wait to put this out there. Not taking this opportunity just to plug that. It really speaks to the leadership qualities that we're touching on and who he is as a person.
Absolutely. And that's pretty much my notebook dump. I did have one last thing I need to talk about, Justin. And I'm sorry that we have to address this, because if we don't address it, it's going to come up. There are people who, I don't know, what's the best way to say this? There are people out there who ignore reality, maybe ignore all reports to the contrary and just stick with whatever belief they have. That Cam Ward quit on his team in the Pop-Tart Bowl.
This isn't even worth it. Yeah, this is...
I have to address it because there are still people who are stuck on this.
So stupid.
And not only is it stupid for all the reasons that you believe, Justin, but the actual story just makes it a complete moot point regardless. Here's what happened that day. If you don't know what happened that day, here's what happened that day. Mario Cristobal, the head coach of Miami, has a quarterback that is expected to go in the first round. They are playing a meaningless postseason bowl game, the Pop-Tart Bowl.
They're meaningless. They are
completely meaningless, right?
They're a cash
He's
cow.
about to lose his quarterback that is going to the league, and the next season he doesn't know who his quarterback's going to be. Now, obviously, Carson Beck transferred to Miami way after that, partially because of what happened in this game. Mario Cristobal, going into this game, said, I need to get a look at our freshman quarterback, the guy that might be our starter next year. I got to see him get live reps. He needs the work against a live defense, a real opponent, not a spring practice against his teammates. And so they made a plan. And that plan was for Cam Ward to play about a quarter of the game, right? Well, it was a close game. Miami's defense was not good, and Cam Ward wanted to stay in the game. They were terrible. Cam Ward wanted to stay in the game to try to get his team a lead before he knew he was going to be pulled for the freshman, right? And he got them that lead, 31-28, narrow lead at halftime. He threw 3 touchdowns in the first half, okay? They scored 31 points in a half of a bowl game, right? And then Cristobal came to him and said, all right, look, you played more than we planned for you to play. You're going to be a top pick in this draft. Maybe not the top pick at that time, but you're going to be a top pick in this draft. We don't want you to get hurt. We don't want to jeopardize that. You've done enough today. We got to see the freshman, so have a seat for the rest of the game. He did not quit on his team.
Listen,
it was a planned for him to not play the entire game.
Listen, that story, I'm not saying it is, obviously, could have been made up to save face, as all the backlash that he was getting, and I still would not give a shit, because reality is reality. Those bowl games are completely meaningless, and it is not worth risking injury in a game like that. The reality, that is not quitting on your teammates, okay? We had people don't give a shit. We had guys there are guys that were opting out. They opt out. The top 50 guys opt out of bowl games every year. They opt out of the combine. They don't want to do the combine anymore. And nobody gives a shit, because these NFL teams, they've accepted reality. It's not worth the risk for these guys. It doesn't, that to me, that says absolutely nothing about his competitive spirit. I don't buy that for a second. And I'm telling you right now, you could disagree with me, okay? NFL teams agree with me. They do not care. I have spoken to them about it. They do not give a single fuck. Not one. Because it is just the reality of today's. There are other, if it's, Anthony Richardson pulling himself out in the middle of a game because he's tired, an NFL regular season game that matters, that means something. Okay? opting out of a meaningless, like he didn't even have any, it's not like Cam Ward was going to come back to college, right? And it's like, oh, he's opting out of a game. They knew he was going to the league. This is not opting out of a semifinal, a playoff game in college. It's not the college football playoff. It does not matter. Teams do not give a shit. They do not care at all.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because my next point was, even if you don't believe this narrative, if you think it's all something that was spun to help Cam's draft stock, it still shouldn't bother you. And if you don't like Cam Ward, you shouldn't like Jamar Chase, because he quit on his team for an entire season at LSU.
Yeah, that really hurt him, right? The Bengals they don't like him at all.
And we know Brian Callahan didn't.
They didn't want to make him the highest paid receiver in NFL history.
And we know Brian Callahan didn't care. And clearly they didn't care about Cam Ward either, because they just took him with the first overall pick. All right, Justin, we're going to close this thing out now. This is going longer than I expected, but that's okay. I love talking about Cam Ward. Rookie year expectations. So I'll start this off. I'm not talking statistical expectations, because like so much depends on, like, stats are hard to predict, right? Do you think Cam Ward will be the favorite, and will he win Rookie of the Year?
Wow. That's a tough question. I'm gonna go with no. I think I hate saying that, but I think Ashton Ginty probably lights the league on total fire, and he probably wins Rookie of the Year. I mean, if he rushes, I think Ashton Ginty is going to be in the running for like leading rusher in the league this year. So no, I don't think he'll be in the running. Of course, Cam Ward, but no, ultimately, and rarely, like, did Caleb Williams win it? Like, it's just so rare that the number one overall quarterback, it was a rhetorical, I know he did it, but it's so rare, right? You want this to be the case. You expect this to be the case. Titans might not be the most, we'll see how competitive they are. Look, if Jaden Daniels, he's got him in contention, then he's going to win it. But ultimately, if I'm, betting man prediction, no, I think Ashton Ginty wins it.
And Joe Burrow didn't win it either, but that's partially because he tore his ACL. Justin Herbert.
He wouldn't have won it anyway, though. They were bad when he was on the field. He wasn't going to win Rookie of the Year.
Justin Herbert set the passing touchdowns record that year and won it. But you are correct. When a rookie running back typically goes for, it could be like 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. Like, that's a great season, but it's not like an amazing season. That's usually enough to win Rookie of the Year, unless the quarterback, the best quarterback rookie, breaks a record. He's got to break some type of record. Passing yards, passing touchdowns.
If he hasn't been postseason contention, I think that could be enough. So there's a pathway here, but I think it's likelier that, that it's Ginty.
I agree with you. I do think it's not as likely that he'll win Rookie of the Year. I would love him to do that, but I think he'd have to throw 38 touchdowns or something, or 35 touchdowns maybe to like be in the real running for it. Or Ashton Ginty would have to get hurt or be a bust or something like that, which could happen, but not going to predict or expect that to happen. What do you think the Titans? Obviously, a lot depends on what they do the next couple of days here, but what is the path to the Titans winning the division this year? How good does Cam Ward have to be? How great does he have to be? Can they win it with him just being a good rookie for them to win the division? Like, what are you really expecting to see from the Titans this year?
Yeah, I think he's got to be great. I think he's got to be almost Jaden Daniels good, because you talked about, does he have to be just good? Unfortunately, probably not, because I don't think this roster is carrying good, right? Like, Cam Ward has to carry bad, right? The rest of the roster isn't that good. So no, I don't think they're going to do a great job playing complementary football. I don't think they've got the talent at other premium. We'll see what they do on Friday. We'll see what they do on Saturday. But the chances of them filling out this roster through this one draft is not that high based on what they came into this draft with. So, no, for them to be the Washington Commanders in 2025, he's got to be Jaden Daniels. So I think that's just the reality of the roster they're dealing with.
Yeah, I think my expectations for this season are like, let's watch some fun, exciting football. There may be a few plays where you're like, what the hell are you doing throwing that pass?
Just look like a franchise quarterback, right?
Right. Like, do I need him to have a Marcus Mariota debut where he has like 13 for 16 with 4 touchdowns or whatever Mariota was that day? No, I don't need that. But I do think it's just going to be fun watching him play football. I think he's going to make a ton of big plays, a ton of highlight reel plays. I think that he's going to be a really exciting player that also has growing pains. Like, the Titans are going to still have 3 and outs. The Titans are still going to punt the ball. They're still going to have games where they don't.
On the first drive of the season, run, pass, punt.
That's going to happen. they're still going to have games where they score under 20 points, but hopefully they have more games where they score over 30 points, because we did get a handful last year, but after that massive drought that we sat through as Titans fans, you hope that Cam Ward can change that. He led the top scoring offense in the country last year at Miami. Granted, he was surrounded by a lot of talent.
I was in the desert like this, waiting for that first 30-point performance in years. I was just...
Yeah. So that's sort of what I expect. I expect the offense to have an up and down year. I expect the ups to be because of Cam Ward, and I expect the downs to be because he struggled at times. Like, there will be games where he struggles and looks like a rookie, and there will be sacks that he takes where you're like, oh, I thought he had good pocket presence and could avoid sacks. Like, he's still going to take sacks. He's still going to throw interceptions. You hope that he's the best rookie quarterback the Titans have ever had. But Vince Young won Rookie of the Year, and then his career flamed out, right? Marcus Mariota was good, not great as a rookie. Steve McNair was a backup as a rookie. So there's a lot of different paths to success here. We know Cam Ward's not going to be a backup. We know he's going to start from day one. And I just hope to see him compete at the NFL level and, like you said, look like a franchise quarterback and get better as the season goes on and give us something to really latch onto hope-wise going into the 2026 season. That is how I would best sum up my expectations for his rookie year.
Yeah, same. I'm going to end this. I think we're winding down here by saying a couple months ago, when we didn't think the Titans were going to take a quarterback number 1 overall, I was I was dreading this coming season, in all honesty, because I felt like, oh, they're probably going to punt on this. They're kicking the can down the road. If that's what they had done, I would have understood it at the time, but certainly would have gone into the year as least excited as I've ever been about a Titans football season. Now I'm going to be about as excited as you can be, because this is the first time they've ever taken a quarterback number 1 overall. They have given us a great reason to tune in this year and be excited. I mean, for me, like hell, I didn't think I was going to say this back in January, December, but September now can't come fast enough, right? That hope springs eternal, right? And when you take a quarterback number 1 overall, you should be incredibly excited about it. And I can't wait to watch Cam Ward play football on Sundays. And we're going to have you guys covered all season long. Breakdowns of almost every game, probably film breakdowns, especially those first couple ones. I'm putting you on the spot because we're going to have to do that. You can't get away with not doing that. So film breakdowns, weekly almost, especially to start. So we're going to have you covered. And we've got some real special stuff coming up here on the Music City Audible. Some great podcasts, some really special, unique guests. Read that article that drops Friday morning talking to Kyle Williams, Restrepo, and the other receivers at Miami. Just so excited for the coverage. And this market's doing a great job covering it. Cam Ward here in Tennessee. So excited that they pulled the trigger on this tonight.
Me too. Titans fans can rejoice. You can breathe easy if you were one of those guys holding your breath up until the moment Goodell read the pick, thinking that they might not do it. Like, I understand the trauma that we've all been through, so that's probably why, but we knew this was going to happen weeks ago, and I'm glad that it finally happened. To your point, Justin, about content we got coming up, I'm working on a video breaking down and designing the perfect offense around Cam Ward, right? We know Brian Callahan's going to pull concepts from what he did well at Miami. I'm going to sort of break down what those concepts are and how they can be applied to and integrated into the Titans offense, the things that he did best. So look for that soon. We're going to be back after the Titans make a pick at 35. If they don't make a pick at 35, if they trade out of it, we'll be back on as soon as they make that next pick. And Justin, I know that you've got a really, really busy Friday with your actual job, but I have a sneaky feeling the Titans are going to be making more than one pick tomorrow. And if you can hop on with me for the second one, I'd appreciate it. If you can't, we'll just make do, and I'll have to do it solo. But we'll see how Friday unfolds. I can't wait for that either.
Yeah, and when he says my real job, it's still in football, right? I'm with the Draft Network. I run out my Titansize.com, so I've got a lot of obligations on Friday and Saturday in football. But I'm going to do my best. We're going to be here. Those will probably be shorter, quicker pods. 10, 15-minute reactions to what they did, whoever they pick. Because I worked with the Draft Network, I spoke to more than 200 prospects in this class. I will know who they pick really well, both from an on-field and off-field perspective, because I've probably talked to him at some point. So we're going to be back with the emergency reaction pods to what they do and if the trade down, again, for that second round, we'll come on to talk about the trade down and that pick when they make it. And then if they make another pick, we'll come back with a second reaction pod for that pick. And then on Saturday, we're still figuring that out. Don't think we're not going to come on after every pick. They're going to make 6 or 7 picks on Saturday, so we'll probably wait till the end and do one episode on the day 3 picks. That'll be a longer one because we'll be talking about 5 to 7 guys. But essentially, we're going to have you covered on every single pick. Then we'll have you covered on undrafted free agency as well. I'll be breaking some undrafted free agency news, more than likely, for the Titans and every other team in the league. So we've got you covered and then some this weekend.
So thanks to everyone for tuning in. If this, again, is your first time at the channel, we don't normally go this long. We're over 55 minutes here. This is atypical for us, but, franchise-changing pick here potentially, so we had to break every aspect of it down. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up, like, turn on alerts so you get a notification when we drop a new video, and put something in the comments below. How excited are you? Takeaways from our conversation here. Ask us questions, and we'll respond to them. If you disagree with me about the Pop-Tart Bowl, unsubscribe. I don't want you watching our videos anymore. Just kidding. But we have a strong disagreement there, whoever you are. And check out our other videos. Check out some of the narrative videos I did. I got 2 really awesome ones on Cam Ward, the perfect QB prospect, which is a clickbait, admittedly a clickbait title, but you gotta play the game if you want to get views on YouTube. But it's just a look at Cam Ward, the prospect, comparing him to some other great quarterbacks when they were prospects. And then I have comparing him to Steve McNair, not comparing necessarily what he did for the franchise, but their backgrounds, their play styles, that leadership attribute.
People can say what they will about the titles, the headlines, whatever. The actual content is A+. It's not clickbait. It is phenomenal content, type of content you should be consuming.
Appreciate that, Justin. So check those videos out on the channel as well, and we appreciate you tuning into this one. If you're a loyal MCA listener, of course we love you, and you guys are the best, and thanks for tuning in and sticking with us for over 55 minutes here. So until tomorrow, when the Titans make another pick in this draft, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.